Episode 211, Doing Ministry Through the Storm with Mike Weaver. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Well, hey guys, welcome to the podcast this week. It's interesting. We plan out our podcast schedule weeks and even months in advance on what topic we're going to cover and what guests we're going to have on the show. And it's interesting that this topic fell on this particular week on the calendar. We're talking with Mike Weaver this week from Big Daddy Weave, all about how to do ministry when the storm is hitting you. And it's interesting that if you live on the Southeast at all, Florida, Georgia, Alabama, South Carolina, North Carolina. I live in South Carolina. We are getting hammered, or we did get hammered this past weekend, with one of the biggest hurricanes in recorded history, with Hurricane Dorian. So it's very interesting how this topic is falling on this particular week. But I am really, really excited to dive into this week's episode of the podcast. And I think it's going to be very relevant, not only just ironically with the storms going on, but with what we're talking about today. So this week, my guest is the lead vocalist for the band Big Daddy Weave. Mike Weaver is in the house. Today I'm talking with Mike about how to do ministry when the storm is hitting you in your personal life, when you're right in the middle of a storm, emotionally or personally. If you're getting just really hit personally, how do you get through it? So the band has really been through some incredibly hard times lately. They've had some death in the family. Several of their family members have passed away. They've had major health issues and other things. They've just been extremely hit over the last few years. And I know I can relate to that. I hope that, and I don't hope sometimes that you can relate to that, but I know that it's inevitable that we're going to go through storms in our lives. So you might be going through a storm personally right now. You might be dealing with personal struggles or a down moment in your ministry. There are times definitely when I've been really discouraged, when I haven't seen the traction in my ministry that I thought I should be seeing, when maybe I keep praying and I don't see my prayers answered, when I know that God has called me to this, but I just don't see the results that I think that I should be seeing. And also, how do I minister to other people when I'm getting hit so hard personally? It's my job. I have to keep going. I have to keep going to work every day. How do I do that and minister and love on people if I'm getting hit so hard myself? If I can barely even breathe, how can I, let alone pastor other people? So if you're going through a similar struggle, today is for you. Mike is one of those guys that you feel like you've known for years, that you feel like he's your best friend when you meet him. You'll hear all about his recent journey with the band and some of their struggles, and how to walk through all that with God. So my interview with Mike is coming right up. But first, your church is cranking into fall. You're having new series kickoffs. You're having small groups that are kicking in. People are coming back to church for the fall. So we want to help you. If you are in need of any custom graphic design, that's sermon series graphics, promotional graphics, social media graphics, announcement slides, anything like that, or custom video. So that's sermon bumpers, series trailers, promotional videos, lyric media. We do a lot of lyric media for ministries and churches. If you're in need of any of that stuff, our team would love to come alongside you and help you with that. So I will put our work up against anyone not just in ministry, but in corporate world as well. Our team does amazing work. And not only that, our team has a heart for the church, the Big C Church. We want to come alongside you and help you. We know that budgets are tight. We know that some of the things that you're going through. All of us on our team have served in ministry in some capacity. I've been on 2 church staffs. I've also worked for an international ministry. I feel you. I know what you're going through. So we would love to help you. So here's the main area that we help churches is if you are a church or a pastor that needs a creative team on staff, but your budget can't afford that, or your budget can't afford even one staff member to come on, we would love to help you. We would love to be that creative team for you. And 9 times out of 10, our prices are 1/3 the price of a staff member. So I'd love to help you in some way with that if you need to. We also help churches that they might have a full creative team, but their team is completely tapped out. There's just so many design and video needs that they just cannot get to everything. So we help those churches as well, so that you can tell the personal stories in your church, the testimonial stories, the stories that we can't tell because we're not there, but we can take your sermon series stuff. We can take your promotional videos and promotional graphics, those sorts of things. So feel free to reach out to us. You can visit our website, 1230.media, and click on custom media and check out all that we have to offer. You can click on the graphic design, church announcements, video production. We do all that. And then that bottom tab that says Get a Quote, you can hit that. And fill out your information, submit your project, and we will get back with you on a quote and try our best to get in your budget and work with your church. So I'm going to show you a recent sermon bumper that we just finished for a church. Here's the kind of custom work that we do for churches. Check this out. So that's just a little taste of some of the video work that we do. We do a lot of motion graphics work and other work for churches. So we would love to make sermon series designs and sermon bumpers, trailers, promos, anything that your church might need. Just let us know. We would love to help. Again, you can submit your project at 1230.media/quote. All right, for over 20 years, Big Daddy Weave has been a staple in Christian music, from their debut album One and Only, to Fields of Grace, to Every Time I Breathe, Love Come to Life, and more. The band has delivered hit after hit. So get ready. Here's my chat with lead vocalist of Big Daddy Weave and worship leader Mike Weaver. Let's go. Hey guys, today on the podcast, I welcome lead vocalist for the band Big Daddy Weave. Mike Weaver is in the house. Their new album, When the Light Comes, is now available for pre-order and hits everywhere in just a few weeks. The Big Daddy himself, Mike, welcome, man. Thanks for hanging out.
What's up, man? This is awesome. It's good to see you.
Thanks, buddy. Now, I did radio years ago, and I'll tell you this was probably 10, 15 years ago. You guys were probably just kind of getting started. And I would interview artists and hang out at concerts and stuff. And, when I was first getting into that, there was this kind of revelation moment of some artists aren't what you expect them to be. And I remember hanging out with you guys and Jeremy Deibler from FFH. And I remember both of you guys especially were just so genuine, so down to earth, so humble. And so I just thought I'd share, man, just a great memory of you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, dude.
Yeah.
Some people have not as good of memories. You know, you have bad days. You never know when that memory is going to turn
Yeah,
up. So that's good.
I know.
Thanks for
Well,
that,
I know
man.
you meet a million people as you're doing your thing, and just who you are matters, and it comes through. So you're making a difference, man. All right, this podcast is all about helping those who make Sunday happen each week. The worship experience is what we talk about week in, week out here. So some people may not know this, but before you guys formed the band Big Daddy Weave, you were a worship leader in Florida for several years, right?
Yes, that's correct. The church I grew up in, little 300 member, you know, United Methodist Church, man, only had hymnals really. And that thing, you remember that weird thing, the transparency machine or whatever? You like put the
Yes.
thing, you have to like write them all on
Yes,
there, and then
like crank the thing. I remember the classroom where you had to like crank it, or you had papers, and you're like,
that's
shout to the
totally it.
Lord was like, let me move the paper real quick.
Yeah, when worship choruses started having like multiple verses, then you were really you really needed a skilled transparency like person, you know. It's like 'cause they're having to whoop, you know. It's like, oh man, we got a bridge on this one, you know. So
That's
it's
right.
like you have to like throw that in there like really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And so when I came, I was invited by our pastor. It was right after high school. He really wanted me to be a college guy, you know, and I really did not want to go to college, but I really wanted to lead worship. The Lord was doing a work in my life around worship, especially some of those super old Vineyard records, man. The Touching the Father's Heart series. It's some pretty not very good sounding recordings, but songs that were just it was about intimacy with the Father. And man, it was so good. So that's where we kind of came in and led for about 7 years, kind of introduced contemporary worship to our congregation, man. But that was a long time ago. That was like almost 20 years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So get me from that to the band. Give me the quick version of how the band started.
Yeah. Well, so my pastor was like, you need to go to school. I tried going to community college in Pensacola, Florida. He said, you got to be at least a part-time student. Man, that didn't work because I wanted to be at church all the time. That was my life. I loved it. And so he's like, you're not able to focus. So go to Mobile, about an hour and a half away. First semester, I meet the rest of the guys in Big Daddy Weave. You know, my brother plays bass, and so he was already with us. And we started leading on campus then, and then these opportunities just started happening. And man, we've been doing it ever since. You know, we thought with a name like Big Daddy Weave, we'd never, you know, make it out of college. You know, but it's like this is 21 years this year actually.
Wow.
So
Tell me the name story. I'm sure you get that a lot. How'd you guys come up with the name?
You can see this. If you can see, it's like, if you're my size in South Alabama, then you are Big Daddy. You don't really get a vote on that. You know, that's your nickname.
Or Slim.
Yeah, or something dumb like that. You know, it's kind of like hey, how about just call me Mike or whatever. But anyway, you know, I always thought it was funny. And the very first time we ever played together, you know, somebody wandered by and goes like, dude, I like that saxophone in there. Dave Matthews was kind of a thing at that moment.
Yeah, baby.
And they were like, you know, man, you guys need to come open up for this other group across campus. And we're like, sweet, dude, we only been together 15 minutes. We already got our first gig, you know? And they said, but what do you call yourselves? And that's where, you know, we start learning lessons right here. You know, I was just being cute. And I said, tell them we're Big Daddy Weave in the institution. You know, my last name's Weaver. And so it's like Weave now, you know, everybody has something they regret about college. Here we are 21 years later. Be careful what you name your group is all I'm telling you. Pray through, you know, call yourself, you know, we could have been, you know, Casting Crowns right then. We could have been like whatever we want, you know, it's like we could have said whatever. And so be careful what you name your group because it might just stick, you know.
There you go. All right. So the topic I really want to dive into with you today is how to dig into, I want to dig into what it's like doing ministry when you're in the middle of a storm. The last few years for you guys as a band, you personally, has been majorly trying for you. So I want to kind of get into that and talk to worship leaders, pastors who have to minister to others, put on the face or get in the grind of ministry while the storm is just slapping them in the face.
Yes.
So maybe walk me through as much as you can the last few years for you guys. I know some big things have happened to you.
Yeah, man. The season that preceded this season was a time of great revival for Big Daddy Weave. So I guess, I don't know, 7 years ago or so, man, we were at a place, we were so dry, we were falling apart, like we didn't know what to do. And one night, we just, out of desperation, we just started shutting down the show and just praying for people. Out of that time of ministry, man, the Lord just did a work in us and revived us. We began seeing Jesus do some of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my entire life. From all kinds of miracles, I'm telling you that the stories continue still even to come in about that time. Then my brother, who's been diabetic for a long time, man, and he was leading the charge in many ways in that time. I've seen cancer run off the other side of his hand, and not because of him, because of Jesus, and because he just believes like a little kid, man. He has such a heart for people. My brother has diabetes. The doctors, trying to keep his sugar level down, tried a medication that was effective in controlling the levels that he wanted to control, but it was also cutting off like blood flow in ways that, man, they just didn't realize. And this happened in lots of cases across the country. All of a sudden, his health just took a dive. He came off the road, was trying to get it under control. It took another dive. And then we were within hours of losing him, rushed to the hospital. Both of his feet were amputated in the next days. It was a dark moment, man. We're praying and we're asking God and we're believing like all these things. And there's so much of the why that comes then, like why,
Yeah.
I've never had an answer to why, by the way, though. I've never met another person who got an answer to why, actually.
Yeah.
But so anyway, the Lord sees him through it, though. People start praying. And he goes through, after he's beginning to recover, he comes back out on the road, even as he's learning to walk again with like prosthetics and stuff like that. He's still recovering, but he went through a dark inside journey too. The way he describes it is like the first day you hear the lie, it's a lie. But 6 months later, after continually hearing the lie, the devil finds a way in there because there's something that seems true about the lie, So he was having suicidal thoughts. It was an awful situation. But in the meantime, we're still having to go out and minister, even from this super broken place, which, man, I'm telling you, there were some nights we just kind of had to drag ourselves out there, and, I was in this place where, my best friend and one of my heroes, I'm seeing him go through this. In the meantime, my dad, who is our hero, begins a battle with pulmonary fibrosis, this awful degenerative lung thing. And he went home to be with Jesus on Christmas morning of 2017, man. His final hours, man, I got to be with him and like literally hear him cling to Jesus just when he could barely even squeak out, the words. I know my dad's with the Lord, but that rocked our family because the whole time we're standing on, God, you're healer, God, you're healer, and we didn't see it in that moment. But man, in the midst of all of those things, in the midst of the pain, in the midst of all of that, man, we experienced the Lord in a different way. Man, I remember the night after my dad passed, I woke up at 3 a.m., man. My mom was already up, man. She's just hurting, And we sat together, man, next to each other. I just held her hand, and we literally just worshiped Jesus with our pain. We just told him, we just said, God, I don't have anything else to bring you right now but just the hurt that I have. And we just laid it at his feet. And do you know what, man? We experienced Holy Spirit as comforter. Like he just came there. That still didn't mean that in the days that came, we didn't experience a lot of pain, because it still hurts even to this day. We miss him, but we know that heaven is real. Right after that, my mom, man, who has worked for our office for years, gets a cancer diagnosis. I'm sitting in the car with her when she gets the call, and I'm just like, what in the world is going on? In the middle of this season, all the other guys are going through stuff too. Brian Beal, our drummer, man, he and his wife have been trying to have kids for like 9 years. We're getting like miracle stories all the time of other people it happening for and all this stuff, and we're not seeing it. And it's just like, man, God, what is the deal? You know? And every night still having to go out there and trying to encourage other people, man. In the middle of that, I got to tell you, that's when we understand that where ministry comes from is from God himself, you know? And there's some times in our lives when what we have to do is just show up and let God be God, you know? A lot of times we think that's not the case, and we think that we're doing something, and that is probably pretty ineffective ministry.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We
Right.
think we're good. God, why don't you just like, let me take this for you? That is, man, a pastor of ours said this. He said, one of the most demonic things you could ever say is, I got this, you
Right.
know? And it's so we want to show up and we want to let God be God. And I saw God minister in spite of my inability to even have joy a lot of times, you know? And man, God has showed up and showed up and showed up and showed up. Man, my mom got a clean bill. Man, the cancer is gone, they believe. That was a rejoicing moment. My brother, man, got help and continues now to share with other people about the darkness of like hearing those like suicidal thoughts and seeing Jesus move in their lives. But through the entire situation, God sustained us. And there were so many times we didn't feel like we had anything to offer, but we would literally just point them to him, you know, and he would be the one who would come and bring life, you know?
So during this time, you're creating content, you're creating music, you're doing concerts, you're out there every night. How in the world, and you touched on this a little bit, but how in the world did you bring yourself to find joy, put a smile on, sing the songs that you were singing while you're dealing with this?
You know, some of it was just in faith, you know, and we just have to go out there and we're like, it literally is just a decision. Like, I'm gonna sing this, even though I don't know how I feel about it, you know. But what I'm learning is that our feelings are so fickle, man. We can be so misinformed by our feelings, but the truth of who Jesus is, man, does not waver in any way towards us. The songs I was singing every night didn't have anything to do with my faithfulness to God. Amen. You know,
Yeah.
Dude, they had everything to do with God's faithfulness towards me.
Yeah.
And he would literally carry us through by putting our trust in him, knowing that it's got to come from him. It's got to be from him. He's got to do it, you know? And, yeah, man. And then just one moment at a time, you know, can you get through the next moment? Can you hang in there? Because it felt like, well, we just need to give up. We need to go take time off. We need to go, but we kind of couldn't because it's also our job, you know?
Right.
And that's a weird thing to navigate, you know,
Right.
all of that. But then professional minister, which I still have not reconciled all of that, you know?
Right.
But man, you know, we try our best to let it be a pure thing and let the Lord help us in that, you know? Yeah. We show up.
Yeah, I think you hit on something good there, in that we talk to a lot of people that are on a church staff that they can't necessarily take a break from. I mean, the Sunday's coming; it's on the way.
Dude,
It is not going to stop. And you're dealing with stuff personally. So how do you go out there every Sunday? How do you keep going if you're just getting knocked?
You know what happened though, man, is some of the time I would just go out and tell them exactly what was going on, man. You know, that authenticity and just be like, guys, I feel like I am falling apart right now, you know? But at the same time, we focus on something that's greater than us, you know? And as we would do that, man, the Lord would meet us there. And it was literally just like, it felt like 15 minutes at a time. Do you know what I mean? But it's crazy because when we would say, man, I'm really dealing with this, all of a sudden you see this entire pocket of the room go, me too, you know? And you realize that, man, that's at that point, all of the life part of it has to come from Jesus. All of the ministry, all the power, man, it's all about him. It's not a formula. It's not anything else, man. You know, it is a person. I used to have these huge theological headbutting matches about how sure I was about this or how sure I was about that. Man, all of that went out the window in the storm, dude. You know, man, I was in the ambulance with my brother, man. My brother's back there. His wife's following us in their car. And I heard Holy Spirit say to my heart, he said, how's this line up with your religion on paper? And I'm like, God, I got nothing. All I have is you. And I'm telling you, Carl, dude, it came back so quickly. He just goes, I am all you are ever going to need. And so when I come across that like great statement or whatever, and I want to live in that place and be like, oh, I need to share that again and again and again and again, man, that is already it, man. It's got an expiration date on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like we got to learn to live in the moment. I'm talking to me right now. I'm not preaching at somebody like we need to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to learn how to live in the moment with Jesus. And the truth is that does not start when you're planning for Sunday morning.
Right.
There was this day, I remember this, man, and forgive me if I'm going a different direction than you want, but man, I remember this day I was walking in the hotel or something, and I heard Holy Spirit say, pick up that towel over there. And I'm like, that's not God. Why would you tell me to pick up the towel? I got about 5 steps away, and clearly, man, I heard this. He said, you're telling me you're going to get all the way to the end of this night and wonder what I want to do in the room because that's the first time you decided to listen to me? It wasn't about the towel at all. It was about walking with him. It was about hearing him. And we got to hear him in the times way before we get to Sunday morning, because ministry comes from the overflow of intimacy with Jesus, not from our, planning center agenda, right?
Right.
It's like it has to come from knowing him, And this is the great thing, though. You do not have to convince him to be in relationship with you. Man, he made every way. I mean, Jesus is the way, like literally, while we're as messed up as we can be, before we even existed on the earth, right? I mean, God demonstrates his love in this, that while we're yet sinners, Jesus died. He made a way because he wants to have that intimate relationship with us. His church is his idea. I mean, maybe not the format that we go through or whatever, but the church, his bride, that's his idea. Yeah. If you want to see fruitful ministry, we got to get with the one. We got to get with the bridegroom himself,
So let me ask you this, and I was gonna ask you. You hit on this a little bit about what do you share on stage? Is it a distraction to people that you're sharing too much, or how vulnerable are you on stage where it becomes they sympathize with you or relate to you? You know what I'm saying? How do you find that balance of how much you share on stage?
Man, this is a very good, let's explore this together, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, dude, that's exactly it. Because if I find a funny joke, dude, I want to tell it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, man, that one worked great. I got to include that one. Same thing with a heavy story or whatever. Man, it's easy to want to do that. And there's some things that God calls us to share for seasons.
Right.
Then there are other things that we try to use as buttons. That is the thing we got to get away from, right?
Right.
We got to get to the place where we are just being informed by God. And like we said, that doesn't start right in that moment. It starts in that like 3:00 this morning when I woke up and I couldn't sleep and the Lord is dealing with me. You know what I mean? That's when that happens. And you say, instead of like picking up your cell phone and seeing what the last thing was on Instagram or whatever, to just not do that and then hang in there for a minute and just let him talk, because he really wants to talk, and especially in those wee hours sometimes, And so, that's the thing, man. So if the Holy Spirit says, share it, and sometimes I get it wrong, honestly, I just get it wrong. And, but either way, it is an offering. It's an offering that I'm giving, and I try to let it come from an authentic place of just like, I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to put it out there. It's like the little kid with loaves and fish. My offering is not enough to feed a whole bunch of people, but I'm putting my offering in the hands of Jesus and believing that he's going to use it,
Yeah.
Then there are other times when he seizes the moment, right? And you cannot help but deliver a thing and you realize God has just moved. But there's a lot of other times when it doesn't, was that God or was that, you know what I mean? Right. And you're just getting through there and the grace of God carries you, Yeah.
All right. So you hit on this a little bit earlier. There's been a lot of people recently in the news in the Christian world that are denouncing their faith, falling away or whatever. And this season for you guys, you touched on this, was a season that you could have easily said, I'm going to throw in the towel.
Sure.
We're going to take a break. or
Yeah.
I'm done with this. I don't see him being real right now, or I'm questioning this. It could have been an easy throw in the towel moment over this last season. So let me ask you this: give me your why. Why are you still up in it?
Man, I wish I could tell you it was like because we just had this rich walk with the Lord, and that was like, and we reached down into the well of faithfulness that we had. And dude, that is not it. I
Yeah.
feel like the disciples, when Jesus was like, "Look, are y'all going to leave too?" And they were just, their response was not like, "No, God, we will never leave you because we are on." They're like, "We don't got anywhere else to go."
Yeah.
It's like I don't have another. What would I do? Like I don't know what else I would do. This is all I have in him. Like, and so until he says to me, "Michael, you need to go over here and do this," then I got to do this because I don't have anything else to do. And I'm not because I'm the greatest at it, but just because it's what he's made a way for me to do,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's why we're still here. I wish I could brag about something better and be like, "Well, man, I'll tell you what, it's because of the mighty warriors we are." Dude, we're freaking falling apart, dude,
Yeah.
And he's just like carrying us. But that is the entire message of the gospel, dude.
Yeah. So how did this season became the album? Like you guys were
Yes.
writing songs, and so get me into that. How did the album come about through this whole thing for you?
We're just writing, and I've just found that you just keep writing, and then the songs come out of life. I mean, you have some busters too, and honestly, the busters are important too because sometimes it just kind of primes the pump,
Right.
But the best songs come out of life, and a lot of these songs all start with pieces that are like you just have to run somewhere and put it in voice memo on iPhone or on a pad of paper or something. Because look, I don't want to forget that because I know I didn't. That's a little bigger than something I would just come up with. There's an inspiration in that, but then you chase them, and you get to write with some of our heroes, man. The Jason Ingrams of the world, man. Oh man, the Matt Redman. Oh,
Yeah.
dude, that dude, man, that is an awesome dude.
Yeah.
Him and Jonas Murray, and we wrote a song called "This Is What We Live For" when we were going through California, and man, awesome. Brian Johnson from Bethel, dude. I think that Johnson's just like hung the moon. There's something when Jen Johnson sings. Golly, are you kidding me, man? I made an entire playlist yesterday that's just Jen Johnson because when I feel like I'm in some kind of turmoil, I put that on. God, I look to you, or whatever, and man, it just ministers to me so much, man. And so writing with some of those people, it's kind of like marrying the season that we've been through and the ideas that we will kind of bring or whatever, and then them speaking into that and sharing with that, and us just kind of talking about life and being together in those times, and it being for me, it's probably a one-sided thing, but I just enjoyed those times, and the songs were born out of that. So when a friend of ours heard the songs from the record for the first time, and she was like, "Dude, there's just so much joy on this record," and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me," because I was like, every one of these songs was written when it just felt like it was falling apart,
Yeah.
But there really is a joy on the record, and that's got to be a God thing,
Yeah. So one thing I read about this album is like you guys usually rent out a recording space, and it's a time thing where like, okay, we got to get in, record, and get out. But you guys recorded in a home studio this time, which gave you a little bit of a relaxed kind of feel to try some stuff, right?
We would always have to go get drums somewhere else. You know what I mean? And then we bring it back to Jeremy's house. And so, but Jeremy actually moved into a new place that had a bigger kind of like the basement, the bottom floor of his house has like a real space. And Jeremy plays guitar for us and has produced all of our records pretty much. And so he had his drum space this time, and they just got his entire basement is full of synthesizers right now, dude. I mean, it's like it sounds like an episode of Stranger Things, like right, in his basement when you walk in, because it's like everything is these old synths, man. But
Nice.
yeah, it was great. It was a great part of that process, and he really is responsible for the sound of the record. Jeremy and our drummer Brian getting in there and just kind of trying things out until it works or whatever,
Awesome. Well, man, as we wrap today, give one last encouragement to worship leaders, pastors. If they're going through a storm right this minute, If it's just
Yes.
life is just hitting them right now, how would you
Yes.
encourage them?
Man, dude, don't believe the lie that the enemy tells that your better days are behind you. That's a lie, man. That really is a lie. Um, the enemy wants to convince us at our lowest moment that's the end of the story. No, 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 no. That is just when the story is getting interesting. And God is an awesome storyteller, man. I mean, because he'll work through things that you feel like are about to kill you, you know? But if you even think about it, I mean, man, the cross, I mean, that was the death of Jesus. But unless he walked through death, he could have never experienced resurrection. So don't waste this time. Don't waste that time. But also don't just look for a better plan. Look to God as the plan and learn how to rest in him. That is our battle right now. A pastor spoke over us. He said, you got to find the rhythm of the rest of God, is what he said. When he said that, man, it just affected my insides. And I just speak that over worship leaders right now to find that place of rest in the Lord. Turn off your phone. You know what I mean? Turn off Netflix. You know, I know, because that's where I go to. I get it, man. I get it. But it's like we are consumed as a society by being distracted by our entertainment or whatever, you know, or our arguments or our whatever. And it's all well-meaning even, but it's like, shut it off, man. And do like Jesus said, go in your room and close the door, right? And pray. And your Father who sees what's in secret, man, that's where he's going to meet you, man. That's where you're going to find life. And I'm not talking about 15 minutes later, it was all over. It may be 15 minutes at a time that Jesus has to get you through it, but he is so faithful. I can really sing the rest of my life about his faithfulness to me, man. You will experience his faithfulness when you turn towards him to find help.
Good. Well, thank you, man. When the Light Comes is the new album from Big Daddy Weave. You can pre-order it at bigdaddyweave.com. Mike, thank you so much for sharing, man. Really, really appreciate your time.
Oh, man, God bless you, bro. Thank you so much for having me on, buddy.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Hey guys, I got to be honest, that has been one of my favorite interviews over the last few months. Mike Weaver from Big Daddy Weave. I want to encourage you to check out their brand new album at bigdaddyweave.com. The way the music industry has changed over the last few years, bands are making millipennies, literally, from all these streaming sites. So I want to encourage you to check out their album, buy their music, wherever you buy music, through iTunes or through their site. Feel free to do that, and please do that so that you can support artists like Mike and others. Okay, it's time for the mailbag. If you have a question that you would like answered on the show, please send it in. You can email me directly at carl@1230.media. That's all spelled out. Carl at the word 12, the word 30.media. Carl@1230.media. Or you can use the hashtag MSHmailbag on social media. We'll see that, and we will hopefully put it on the show. We get a lot in, so we choose a few. So feel free you can reach out to me on Facebook as well. If we're not friends on Facebook, be sure to find me, and you can add me, and then you can just message me if you want a question, or you can put it on the Facebook wall there. So feel free to do that. Our question this week comes from Nathan Holder. He's asking about sermon bumpers and series trailers. He asked, do you make any different versions for different weeks, especially for series that continue for multiple months? This is a great question, Nathan. So here's my answer. Yes. I suggest that you run a bumper for about 4 to 5 weeks. About 4 to 6 weeks is the lifespan of a sermon bumper. After a month or so, 6 weeks, it's getting kind of old and it's getting kind of stale, no matter how good it is. People have just seen it over and over. So anything past that, I would refresh your bumper. I would suggest that you do your series. If you're doing a huge series, like multiple months or multiple years, like I talked with a pastor this past week who's doing Genesis. His team is doing the book of Genesis over the next 2 years, like 80 messages. And I was like, hey, brother, I would definitely break this up in parts or volumes. So do that, and you can do like Genesis Volume 1, or you can even call it a different name. Even though that you're studying Genesis, you can call it The Fall, or you can call it Noah and the Flood, or you can call it, God's Redemption, or whatever, to kind of break it up, even though you're studying Genesis for the next 2 years, still break it up into parts or volumes. So either Genesis Volume 1 or Part 1, or have different names for your series. So again, the lifespan of a bumper is about 4 to 6 weeks before people start tuning out. And you can change. So if you do like Genesis Part 2, you can come in and you can use the same structure of the bumper, but you can change the footage, you can change the text, the music, the colors, so that it's the same basic structure and feels the same. And it feels like a Volume 2 or Part 2, but you're just changing a few things to freshen it up, just to give it, just a refresh. So, again, you can use the exact same structure of your bumper, just change out the quote-unquote content of that bumper. And again, every 4 to 6 weeks is my opinion on that. All right, great question, Nathan. Again, Carl at 1230.media, or you can use the hashtag MSHmailbag on either my Facebook or the Making Sunday Happen Facebook group, and we'll get those questions and possibly put them here on the show. So next week on the podcast, we will start a 2-part series with Shannon Scott. Shannon has served on staff at North Point Community Church and Passion City Church in Atlanta. She now serves on staff at Church of the City in Franklin, Tennessee. She has a background in children's and family ministry and has also been a major player in planning, creating, and executing worship experiences at all 3 of the churches that I just mentioned. So I'll talk with Shannon by video, and we'll also share her SALT 18 workshop all about service planning made simple. So if you want some different ways that you can plan out your services and just some tips and tricks for that, next week and the week after will be just for you. Shannon has worked in and worked with some incredible churches, so her insight is really, really practical, and some of the material that she'll share is used by companies like Disney and Pixar and others. Great information. That all starts next week. And speaking of SALT, we'll be airing Shannon's SALT 18 workshop starting next week. So speaking of SALT, our friends over there have been incredibly generous and have given you guys a coupon code to get $50 off your ticket if you haven't purchased it yet. So it is October 9th through 11th at Long Hollow Baptist Church in Nashville. If you haven't gotten your ticket yet, you really, really need to. It's only a few weeks away. So if you haven't gotten your ticket yet, $50 off with this coupon code. So get ready. It is 1230, all one word, all spelled out. So TWELVETHIRTY, all spelled out, all one word, 1230 at salt19.com to get $50 off your ticket for SALT. Again, the word 1230, all one word, all spelled out, at salt19.com. When you go to checkout to buy your tickets, just put in that coupon code for $50 off. So that is for our 1230 community only. So take advantage of that, $50 off your ticket. If you haven't gotten a ticket yet, you really, really need to jump on because they're almost sold out. So be sure to jump on that. Show notes page for this episode of the podcast is at makingsundayhappen.com, and you can join the Facebook community at facebook.com/makingsundayhappen. Thank you guys for listening this week. Go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.